So, Rob, we talk a lot at Sandler about, the congruency of behavior, of attitude and technique. And from an attitudinal concept, we've got rule number 10. You can only perform consistently with how you see yourself conceptually. How does rule number 10 apply?
Yeah, with rule number 10, you can only perform in the way that you see yourself conceptually. This is the attitude leg, right, of the behavior attitude technique triangle. And to me is the hardest because it's 100% in the salesperson's control. Inevitably, when you don't have conviction around your product or service, your pricing, the marketplace, you have what I like to reference as stinking thinking. You are going to perform in the way that you see yourself conceptually. And, for many years, cutting my teeth inside of this business, which wasn't easy to do. But for the first 2 years, I did not see myself as somebody who would be able to provide guidance, coaching, advice, strategy to business owners that were, 2-3 times my age. And it showed in my results. And realistically, it probably took me 4 years to kind of overcome that, to get the confidence, right? And that is the hardest part of my journey when I think about, where I started to where I am today. And for any business development rep that's either new in a role, and it doesn't necessarily matter how long, you've been a professional, right? But we all have what we call imposter syndrome, right? Where, whether we're sitting across from an opportunity that's just outside of our wheelhouse of where we're comfortable, that's really what we're talking about when we have that negative self-talk of, do I really belong here?
Yeah, and maybe kind of explain a little bit, peel that back in terms of, salespeople versus consultants or trusted advisors.
So when we think about, salespeople, if we're selling a widget, there's not a ton of complexity to it, versus a consultant mindset, where they're looking not only at the widget, but they're looking at everything around that widget. They're looking for opportunities. They don't necessarily have horse blinders on. Mm-hmm. And I think so many times salespeople have a tendency to walk into an organization, they put their horse blinders in, they're there to talk about the widget. They're not looking around for other opportunities to be able to kind of upsell, cross-sell, or impact that organization in a different way.
So if somebody were to see themselves conceptually as a salesperson, they're going to perform consistently with a salesperson. And a salesperson typically gets treated how?
Like a salesperson, get in line, give me your number, right? And we'll get back to you.
Love that.
So, Rick, we often talk about behavior attitude technique, core philosophy of Sandler. And, when I think of that core philosophy, Rule 10 just kind of sticks out to me. And Rule 10, you can only perform consistently with how you see yourself conceptually. Peel that back and just give us a little bit of your insight when it comes to that rule.
Yeah, Rule 10, you can only perform consistently with how you see yourself conceptually. First things first, you'll never outperform your self-concept. So if you believe you are a heavy hitter, if you believe you are a consultant, a trusted advisor, you will typically run towards that self-concept. Sure. If you believe you are a salesperson whose job it is just to create a transaction, you will perform consistently in that one and you'll do a nice job. But, nice job salespeople get treated like nice job salespeople by buyers. They don't have next level, second level, deep conversations, commercial level conversations. Salespeople will typically talk about features and benefits, their experience, their time in the industry, even some of the clients they've worked with in the past. But that's salesy stuff. Consultants, next level, right? And you have to have a fundamental belief that because you're a consultant, you get to ask the tough questions. The tough questions that other salespeople wouldn't dare to ask. And eventually, you'll get what you want. You'll get to help people. And if you don't, that's okay too, right? Consultants are here to perform a service too, without bias or without prejudice. And if somebody walks in thinking they're a consultant, typically the cuffs are off. The questions are coming out. The questions that can actually lead us deeper in the conversation.
Yeah, and when I hear you talk about that, it reminds me of it's not necessarily a Sandler rule, but it's actually one that I shamelessly stole from you. You have to be curious, you have to be cautious, and you have to be not tied to the outcome. And I think that is kind of what you just said.
Yeah. Sometimes I catch lightning in a bottle.
Mm-hmm. I would agree.
Sometimes I don't. Sometimes I fail. But in fact, I got that from my very first sales coach. And by the way, my very first sales coach, I was probably 48 years old when I finally had a sales coach. I thought I was too good for that. I thought coaching was just for people who were broken. They didn't get it. They were struggling. And my first sales coach lit me up pretty good and gave me some good stuff. So I'll give him credit for that one. I'll give him credit. So God didn't put me on this earth to sell books. Now, there's nothing wrong with that profession, but that's just not my calling. You are welcome to purchase this book online, or you could head to our website and purchase the book as well. The reality is, if you'd love to have a conversation on how to operationalize the rules for the modern day buyer for your business, for yourself, Rob and I would love to have that conversation. So head to the website, fill out the Contact Us form, and we'll take the rest from there.